before coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page, if you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. I want to switch gears, and I want to talk a little college football because Wednesday was the second kind of wave of National Signing Day, high school football signing, transfer portal signing, etc. I don't think you need me to tell you, but the bottom line is, look, most of the marquee high school players do sign in December. There is a second national signing window, though, the first week of February. That used to be the original National Signing Day. And it's kind of a time where that second wave of transfers that kind of decided to transfer after the bowl game, that's when they make their announcements. And there are still a few marquee high school players that had yet to commit, that committed on Wednesday. Nicholas Harbor, an elite athlete we talked about on this channel a few days ago, is headed to South Carolina. Roderick Pleasant, a really talented cornerback from the Southern California area, is headed to Oregon. Jaden Rashada, our guy, Mr. NIL from Florida, decommits from Florida, is now going to Arizona State. So there's a lot of interesting moving parts on Wednesday. With that said, though, there is one school specifically that I do want to talk about. Let me explain why. It's because with these two signing periods done, early December, mid-December, and early February, we now kind of have a feel for what rosters are going to look like, at least going into spring football, and then more or less going into the 2023 season. Now, you're going to lose a few guys to the portal in the spring. You're going to gain a few guys from the portal in the spring. But for the most part, rosters are kind of what they're going to be for 2023. And so I bring it up because there is one specific school that I do want to talk about, and it is the school that we have talked about a lot on this YouTube channel here over the last probably 6 to 8 weeks. And that is the Colorado Buffaloes, coached by Deion Sanders, who we now call Coach Prime. And the reason I want to discuss Colorado is because with Coach Prime's first recruiting class now complete, I am very excited about what is to come in Boulder, Colorado for Coach Prime, Colorado, the Buffaloes, etc. Here's the thing, though. Nobody really cares what I think, but instead, there was somebody else that seems very excited about the group that is headed to Colorado and thinks potentially, based on some comments that I saw on Wednesday, that this group could exceed expectations in year one in 2023. That gentleman who believes that? Well, it's none other than Deion Sanders, Coach Prime himself, who had this to say after his signing class was completed on Wednesday. He said, and I quote, "We're not recruiting just no ordinary Tom, Dick, and Harry. We recruited some guys that can light up the scoreboard and prevent touchdowns from occurring. We're coming. We're serious about that." And then he continued, "Hope is in the air." Well, let me tell you this. I have thought for quite a long time that Coach Prime's first team is probably going to be a little bit better than people think. But when Deion Sanders himself, when Coach Prime himself says, "Oh, we're coming," which I know is his tagline, but that hope is in the air, that I believe we have brought difference makers into this program. That's a lot different than anyone in the media saying it, someone else in college football. Coach Prime knows this roster. And if Coach Prime is a believer, you better believe that I am a believer as well. And it's really interesting, right? Because whenever I talk about Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, I'll start calling him Coach Prime. My intellect is to call him Deion, but I know he goes by Coach Prime and prefers Coach Prime. But why I bring it up is because every time I talk about Coach Prime, every time I talk about Colorado, the immediate reaction is one of two things. I think there are people that love Coach Prime, and I think there's a lot of people, "Oh, this is the FBS. This is the Power Five. It's going to be completely different than it was at Jackson State." And they never want to give him credit, and they say, "Oh, he's overrated. He's not going to be good. He's not going to be this. He's not going to be that." And I always say, I think he's going to be better than people think. And so why I want to talk about it now is because now that this first recruiting class is complete, I think there's a lot more talent coming into this roster than people realize. First of all, there is the raw numbers of it all. And would you believe me if I told you that Coach Prime just wrapped up a top 25 national recruiting class, top 25 nationally? Now, to be fair, they signed significantly more players than a lot of other schools. in total, 19 high school players, 24 transfers. Not great at math, but that's 43 players total. And so it's not really fair to compare them to a place like Alabama, who signed, 25, 26, 27 players. Some of the schools that just didn't have as many roster needs. I understand that basically outside of Arizona State, Colorado probably signed the most players of anybody in college football this offseason. But it doesn't change the fact that when you actually look at who is coming into Colorado, they have a chance to be, I think, pretty good next year. Now, again, it takes more than one recruiting class to build a national champion. I get that. I'm not saying they're Bama tomorrow. I'm not saying they're Georgia tomorrow. I'm not saying they're Ohio State, Michigan, whomever tomorrow. What I am saying is I think they're going to be better than a lot of people realize. First of all, in terms of some of the new people, I think it starts with Shedeur Sanders, right? Quarterback at Jackson State. Last year, 70% completion percentage, 40 touchdowns for JSU. And I know the immediate reaction is, well, he came from the FCS level. He came from the HBCU level. It's going to be a lot different going to the Power 5. And I get it. It will be. It will be a major step up. But here's my question for you. Is it going to be as big of a step up as people think? And let me explain why. First of all, he has now at this point hundreds, if not thousands of snaps at the college football level, okay? So the idea that he is going to be somehow overwhelmed or not ready or whatever, is the speed of the game going to be faster? Yes. Is the quality of the athlete going to be better? Maybe. But at the same time, everyone every offseason tries to sell me on freshman quarterbacks, tries to sell me on other transfers from the lower levels. I'll give you an example. UCLA this offseason is obviously losing Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They added the kid Colin Schlee from UCLA or from Kent State, who could be the starter at UCLA next year. That kid completed 53% of his passes last year as a group of 5 starter. So you're telling me Shedeur Sanders, 70+% completion percentage at Jackson State. You can sell me on the kid going to UCLA that completed 53% of his passes, but you can't sell me on Shedeur Sanders? Beyond that, I'm telling you, I watched all of these guys that everybody is trying to sell me that I need to get excited about. Spencer Sanders, who's going to, by the way, Colin Schlee was closer to 58, 59% still. I'm sorry. When you throw 58% completion, 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and you're sold as a savior at UCLA, forgive me, I'm not buying it. But at the same time, all these other guys that people are selling me on, I've watched Spencer Sanders. I don't think he's that good. I've watched Hudson Card, who's going to Purdue. I think he's fine. I don't think he's significantly better than whoever that you're trying to sell me on. And so I could keep going, but the point I'm trying to make is, I think everybody thinks it's going to be this major step up in competition for Shedeur Sanders, and it will be. But you're going to sell me that Hudson Card's the answer at Purdue, or that Spencer Sanders is the answer at Ole Miss, or that, whoever. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. These other guys that are going to other places. Not saying Shedeur will be Caleb Williams' best quarterback in college football. I know Michael Penix is still in the Pac-12. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks. But you sell me on the freshman, you sell me on these other transfers, I think Shedeur Sanders is going to be pretty good. From there, just look at the skill position talent that's coming in. Again, I haven't done a deep dive breakdown of all of the rosters in the Pac-12. And USC's got a lot of talent, and Oregon's got a lot of talent, and UCLA's got a lot of talent. But I'm just going to rip off some names and tell me if you think that what Colorado brought in is significantly worse than some of the teams that they'll be playing next year. Washington State, Arizona State. Running back, Kavosiey Smoke, played it at Kentucky for the last 5 years, has had some really good years, 700-800 yards rushing in his in one season. I believe it was 2019. He is coming in. You have Dylan Edwards, a 4-star who was committed to Notre Dame. If he's good enough for Notre Dame, he's good enough for Colorado. He should be able to come in and make plays. And wide receiver, Jimmy Horn, all AAC wide receiver, from South Florida. Keep in mind, Penn State wanted him. Texas A&M wanted him. If Penn State wanted him, you think he's good enough to compete at Colorado and have success at Colorado? Because I think he might be. You want me to keep going? Seydou Traore, all-conference tight end from Arkansas State, one of the best tight ends in the portal. Offensive line. They added pieces from Florida and the SEC, from some of the mid-majors, from Jackson State. I'm not saying that is a national championship caliber offensive line, but it's going to be an improvement from last year. And then we get to the defensive side of the ball and think of some of the names that they've added on defense. Obviously, Travis Hunter. I'm sorry. No, he played at Jackson State. that guy can play anywhere in college football. If he was good enough for Kirby Smart, if he was good enough for Nick Saban, if he was good enough for Alabama, if he was good enough for Florida State, he's going to be good enough to play in the Pac-12. Even after a year at Jackson State, he is a difference maker. Cormani McClain, again, if he was good enough for Billy Napier, if he was good enough for Mario Cristobal, Nick Saban recruited him, he's going to be successful at Colorado as long as he's bought in with Coach Prime and everything going on at Colorado. Shiloh Sanders, Deion's other son, still at Jackson State, finishing up his degree. Started his career at South Carolina. If he's good enough to play for Will Muschamp at South Carolina, he's going to be fine in the Pac-12. I could go on and on and on, but those are just some of the names. By the way, it's worth noting, on whatever it was, Wednesday, we found out that on top of everybody that we already knew, Demoy Kennedy, a former low 5-star, high 4-star linebacker that played at Alabama the last 4 years, is coming to Colorado. Vontae Bailey from Clemson coming to Colorado. Jordan Dominic from Arkansas coming to Colorado. So you just start to look, Miles Slusher, safety from Arkansas coming to Colorado. So you just start to look at the number of dudes that are coming to Colorado. I'm just telling you, this team has a chance to be really good next year. Now, listen, it's all relative. And by the way, I should mention this as well. Keep in mind, and Coach Prime talked about this at his press conference, there is another transfer cycle that will happen in the spring. We'll have coaching changes potentially at positions, this, that, the other thing. We'll have guys lose out on starting jobs. We'll have problems. We'll have this. We'll have that. We'll have guys decide to leave. Guys decide to look at other opportunities, NIL stuff, whatever the situation is. Guys are going to look for other opportunities. Oh, by the way, here's the other thing I think that you can't underestimate. More kids are going to watch the Coach Prime documentary on Amazon. They're going to see what Travis Hunter, what Shiloh Sanders, what Shador Sanders, what those guys are doing on social media with the platform that Colorado and Coach Prime are providing, mostly Coach Prime more so than Colorado, and they're going to say, I want to be a part of that. So this is all a very long-winded way of me saying this. I understand the schedule is going to be tough. I understand you start with TCU on the road, a team that just played for a national championship. But guess what? Coach Prime coached high school in Dallas. Coach Prime interviewed for that job before they gave it to Sonny Dykes. You don't think he's going to be fired up for that game? Nebraska in week 2, Pac-12 is tough. They play Oregon, they play USC, UCLA, Utah late in the season. With that said, I am not ready to say that Coach Prime, 1, isn't going to bring in even more talent in the spring, and 2, that he's not going to exceed expectations. Not saying national championship year 1, not saying Pac-12 title year 1. But do I think they're going to a bowl game? I do. Do I think they're going to be better than most people are going to give them credit for? I do. I believe in Coach Prime. Coach Prime himself said on National Signing Day, he said, hope is in the air, and I believe it. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube channel. Also, new episodes of the Aaron Torres Podcast drop every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.